So I am now joined by Wilfrid Obeng, the co-founder over there at AudioMob. How's the show been for you so far?
It's been really good, really busy. Loads of travel to loads of different events, but I think Pocket Game is always one you have to come to.
You did a talk yesterday, didn't you?
Yeah.
I was hopping around in the background. How did that go? People often feel a lot more relaxed once they've got it out of the way.
So the talk went really well. We had a lot of game developers coming and asking different questions about audio ads. As it's a new format, so a lot of people had naturally a lot of questions about how it works.
Speaking of, when I think of audio ads, and you specifically talk about non-interruptive audio ads, which is a word I'm hearing a lot, and I'm sure doesn't exist, but people are using it anyway. When I think of that, my mind goes to, right, so I'm playing a game, I'm playing GTA, I've got the radio on in the background in the car, and then an ad starts playing on that, or there's a TV commercial running in the background. Is this what you mean by non-interruptive audio, or is it something else?
Yes, so no, that's one example of non-interrupting audio. So the way we look at ourselves at AudioMob is like we are the DIY toolkit for game devs in the way they want to use audio ads in their games. So for some of our games, like we're in Big Brother the game, it works exactly how you mentioned. Like it's an audio ad that you actually initiate by clicking on the radio in the game. So you walk around the environment, click on the radio, you get extra rewards for doing that. But the cool thing is you can continue to play the game, right? Continue to walk around, you continue to do other tasks in the game. And we have other games where like they do stuff like instant rewards. So like immediately when you trigger the audio ad, you have an instant reward. And then by lowering the volume and things, people are doing cool, interesting applications where they take away the reward when the volume falls below a certain threshold.
Because I was going to ask how you track something like that. So you do have to have that trigger point initiation, and I guess that counts as an engagement. But then if the volume drops below a certain point, you've lost it. So that brings us on to another thing, which is, especially in the world of mobile, which we tend to focus on, a lot of people play games either with the audio very low, with no headphones on, or even no audio at all. How do you work around that? Is that something that makes it won't work for that particular kind of game, or do you have solutions?
Yeah, so we spent 2 years doing research and development on the actual audio state of your device. So that may be an Android or iOS device. So we're actually looking at the device volume. We're able to track that. So we see if it's above the threshold of 30%. And then if it's below that, we show like an unmute prompt that says to the user, hey, you're going to get a reward if you unmute your audio. Because what's interesting, especially with 16 to 25-year-olds, is the majority of them are actually listening to music with their AirPods in, but they aren't listening to the game audio. So this is why we track the actual device volume. And another thing we do, because we realize that they're listening to audio, it's like around 61% of people actually have their audio on, but they might be listening to music, is that we're tracking also whether they're listening to music, and we'll gently pause their music, play the ad, but then return their song back to the point it was at, just to make the experience a bit more seamless for the user and less annoying than having like ads playing at the same time as your music, or even worse, just stopping your music and then just playing the ad.
You talk about like a 2,000% increase in engagement using these kind of audio ads compared to something like a banner ad. Firstly, like how is that just the result of more people have clicked on it? Do you think people are aware that they are clicking on an ad? Is part of it the fact that they just, I want to turn the radio on, and they don't realize it's an ad going in? Why do you think there is this huge increase?
Yeah, so the reason why we've seen that, especially with music, and I was showing a case study yesterday with like Nas, the rapper Nas, it was really interesting, is because also we got him to lend his voice to the creative. So it's almost like you've got this person talking out at you and actually saying, hey, listen to my album and check out and stream it. That's where we see the massive increases. Or we also see it generally because people are not used to this idea of like a voice, and it's more human, right? And it's really interesting from our focus groups, what we've seen is a lot of people will say, yeah, I just continue playing the game and I wasn't focusing on the audio ad. But then you ask them to recall what was being said in the audio ad, and 100% of people are like, oh yeah, I think something being said about, LinkedIn, or something said about McDonald's. So it's quite interesting in terms of how audio plays a part in terms of when we're listening to music, how we can recite and remember music lyrics very easily after a few listens. It's a very similar thing we're seeing with audio advertising. And I think that's what's spurring on that engagement. It's like, oh, actually, that's actually, I can recognize that voice, or that product, or that sonic signature. So for example, the McDonald's sonic signature, the Netflix sonic signature that everyone's familiar with.
So do you rely on kind of embedding it in your audience, and then later they might get, oh yeah, maybe I'll try that out? Or do you actually try and direct users out of the ads via, because things like banner ads and other ads, you'll actually click and then you'll find yourself being taken outside of the app. Do you try and implement that kind of stuff as well? So someone will say, hey, if you just click here and a pop-up will appear? Or do you rely on it being purely kind of almost subliminal?
So, no, great question. So we have the ability for you to do audio ads with the banner, so you can click through into it. We also have the ability for you to do audio only, so it's just like it just says the audio ad is playing, so there's a visual cue to let the user know the audio ad is playing. But we actually leave that again up to the developers, because some developers care about the screen real estate. They don't want the idea of a banner ad taking up the whole space. Some developers don't want the click-through to go through and break the user experience. So they actually prefer that the click-through, they can gather that information and use it somewhere else or show it after the level is complete. So we actually, in our API, allow game developers to choose the different elements of our creative and how they actually format them, how they want them to look visually as well. So give them that kind of optionality around it.
Have you seen any change in the way that users are interacting over the last 2 years, sort of the pandemic kicking in? How many games have you implemented this in so far? Are you in a beta-ish stage, or is it very much out there in the wild?
No, so we're very much out there in the wild. We've got over 50 game development studios. And what we actually did is we started with really small game development studios. They don't like 1,000 DAU, but now we've moved on to much bigger studios with when you're in the 50 to 100,000 daily active users. And what we've learned from that is there is a very interesting kind of new form of user behavior that's actually coming out of this. Where like with the Big Brother game, we've seen a lot of users actually prefer using the audio ads to get loads of rewards really quickly, so that they can gather a lot of rewards while doing other tasks in the game without being blocked for 30 seconds.
It's the listening to podcasts while doing your washing up with gaming, yeah.
Exactly. And it's stopping that whole idea back in the day when before Netflix, where you had to go, you watch a TV show, as soon as you saw an advert break, you'd use that as time to go and do something else. And we're stopping that disruption and that drop in retention that game developers see usually when that happens.
So what are the plans for 2022 then? Now that everyone's opened up and some people are returning to the real world situation, and in some cases we're seeing a drop in people interacting online as much, but in a lot of cases that is kind of sticky. People are staying attached to their mobiles regardless. For you, what are you working on in the new year?
Yeah, so for us, the focus really is talking with more game development studios, getting that feedback as well. And one thing I love, especially as more candid, the more interesting, the more insightful the feedback, the better for us. Because for us, it's really about making the actual format work for the game development studios and fit into their games, and see new creative ways actually that you can use audio ads. Also going forward in the future. So for us, it's really just getting that growth, getting into more games, getting interesting applications, and really growing our team as well. So we're hiring a load as well. And expanding out into America and also into Abu Dhabi.